Right. Hello, everyone. I see people starting to join in. Welcome to our first webinar series this summer. We're going to be discussing how you all can get the most out of your internship this summer. A huge thank you to our panelists today who are going to be speaking. We have Isaiah Williams, Mackenzie Randall, Meg Batchelder, and Russell Phillips all speaking with you, as well as Hannah. And a special thank you to our webinar series sponsors as well. We have Unum, Garmin, Cross Insurance, and MaineHealth. As well, I just want to share some upcoming events we have with you all this summer. Next week, we are doing our webinar on winding career paths, and that is at the same time at 12 o'clock next Tuesday. And we also have our headshots and handshakes available to you guys to attend. We'll have a booth set up for you guys to get some professional headshots and as well as network with other employers and interns throughout the state. And lastly, I also just want to remind you guys, feel free to, in the chat section, introduce yourselves, where you're working this summer and what you're going to be doing, as well as there's a Q&A section. So if you guys have any directed questions at the panelists, feel free to drop those in the Q&A section. And I am just going to pass it off to Hannah now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Henry. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us for our first Summer 2026 MCC webinar. The focus of today's conversation is how to get the most out of your internship, which we figured was the perfect topic to start things off with. For those of you that haven't had a chance to meet me through either one of the orientations or the kickoff events, my name is Hannah Green. I'm the manager of workforce partnerships at Educate Maine, and I oversee the Maine Career Catalyst program and the team, and we're looking forward to a really fantastic summer. As Henry said, as we kick off the conversation, if you want to put your name and where you're working, maybe where in the state you are this summer in the chat so we can get a sense of who's participating in the conversation today, that would be fantastic. As Henry said, we have a fantastic slate of panelists with our conversation, and to give you a little bit of a sense of how the next hour or so is going to go, we're going to have the panelists introduce themselves and a little bit about the company or organization that they work for and their current role. I have a couple of questions queued up for the panelists to kick off the conversation, and then we're hoping to leave plenty of time at the end for audience engagement and question and answer that you might have for the panelists. So we'll encourage you all as you have questions throughout the course of the conversation to pop them into the chat or the Q&A. We'll be keeping an eye on those and flagging them, and we'll be looking to hear what thoughts and questions you all have at the end of the session. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to our panelists. I'll start with Mackenzie. You're first up on my screen. So if you would like to start, and again, share your name, where you're working, and give folks a little bit of a sense of what your current role is, and then we'll move it along through the rest of the panel.
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. Like you already mentioned, I'm Mackenzie Randall. I am a university recruiter for Garmin International. I'm actually located at our headquarters in Kansas City, so I'm very jealous of all of the weather you guys are having in Maine right now. But part of my role is doing the entry level and intern hiring for our office in Yarmouth.
Thank you. Meg, how about you next?
Awesome. Thanks, Hannah. My name is Meg. I am a project manager at Unum. We're a disability insurance company, and I work out of our office in Portland, Maine, even though we have offices all over the country. And here I support our internal operations, but actually previously was a summer intern and worked with Maine Career Catalyst when I was in college. So had an amazing time with that and was happy to return here.
Thank you, Meg. Isaiah, you're next.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaiah Williams, and I work out of Hanford Supermarkets out in the home office here in Scarborough, Maine. I lead our early talent program, so that's our internships and our not only our home office internships, but also our retail management internships across the states that we occupy, and then also our retail management training program. So thank you so much for having me, and glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Russ, round us out.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Russ Phillips. I'm the director for community engagement at Martins Point Healthcare. Martins Point is a not-for-profit healthcare organization. We have five healthcare centers in Maine. I'm based in Portland, and we also operate two lines of insurance. So we have about 1,000 employees all over the Northeast. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. The first question I have to get us started today is what are some key habits, behaviors, or practices that interns can develop early on that'll help make a positive impression and set themselves up for success for the rest of the summer?
I won't mind kicking us off here. Great first question, and something that many interns, students at universities are used to now. Checking your calendars and reviewing what classes you got coming up or assignments that you got coming up. And I think this is a practice that you can very quickly and easily adapt to. Working in whatever office or whatever space that you're working in. And I say just reviewing and being mindful of that calendar so that you can then prep yourself for said meeting that's coming up. I think that as you go through your not only your internship or your career, you'll find that showing up um, to any scenario authentically and accurately is really important. So if you can take the time to prep yourself for said meeting by reviewing your calendar so that you can have the intention to showing up accurately and authentically at said meeting, that really gives you an opportunity to set yourself up to really not only make an impression, but also wow a few folks like wow they really thought about the contents of this meeting and were ready to be a part of it and not just a viewer, right? As it might be easy for an intern to be nervous and be like, I don't know what to say, I just want to learn, which is great too. You should learn. But definitely do yourself a favor and prep yourself for the scenarios that you find yourself in.
I love
Yeah,
that.
sorry, I'm going to piggyback off of that, Isaiah. I think something, especially for interns, that is hard to do is, I guess, be comfortable with asking questions. I think there's a lot of time where interns are like, this question is stupid. I don't want to be bothering these people. I should be able to figure this out. You will have more benefit if you just go talk to somebody. It's more efficient. I think there is a lot of benefit to trying to figure out a problem by yourself also, but if you're going on 30 minutes to an hour, there's somebody near you that has a solution or has advice on how to solve whatever problem that you're currently facing. And you're not bothering somebody, and it's a great way to learn. So just being comfortable with that vulnerability of saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm lost here, can you provide some guidance, will take you a lot further than pigeonholing yourself into just try, I guess, getting tunnel vision, trying to solve this problem by yourself when you have somebody that could help you with it.
Yeah, Mackenzie, to your point, you don't want to be the person that's halfway through the summer and you get to a point where, you really need help. And then it's like, well, why didn't I step up sooner? Why didn't I say this sooner? So yeah, I've never met anyone that has been bothered by answering questions or showing support, particularly as somebody is starting out in a role or with a company. And Isaiah, to your point about preparing and being organized ahead of time. And it doesn't take a whole lot, even reviewing like 5 minutes beforehand. This is what this meeting is about. This is a question I have. This is what I want to get out of it. You don't have to spend a ton of time prepping for something, but even 5 minutes beforehand, doing your research and making sure that you're coming prepared makes a huge difference. Great points, both of you.
To provide an anecdotal story, I guess I had one of our it's a CMF engineering, so color material finishes in an engineering intern was in my office last week, and in that profession, there's a lot of acronyms. And he was telling me that there are so many acronyms, and he heard one like 5 times, and he never asked what that meant, and now he feels stupid for having to go back and ask, "Hey, what does that actually mean? I've heard it 10 times, but I never asked." And I told him like, you better ask before you hear it 20 more times. So ask the question.
Absolutely. Those are some great skills to develop early on. How have you all seen interns successfully building strong relationships with coworkers and supervisors throughout the summer? What impact can those connections have on an intern's overall experience and future opportunities with the organization?
I'm happy to jump in here. I think that building strong relationships is going to be the core of your internship, making connections with the people around you, but also the people who work in areas that interest you is so important to really authentically understand what actually happens day to day in those parts of the business or in those parts of wherever you work. So scheduling short calls or meetings or coffee chats, even if they're very casual, can be a great way to get to know people, and really being intentional about getting to know people for who they are and showing up to those conversations authentically is really important rather than just showing up for the sake of networking. And if you really want to go the extra mile, I think trying to do something during your internship, whether it's a small project or something larger, to deliver value to those people that you want to leave that impression on can be a great way to set yourself apart from the rest of the interns and employees that you're going to be working with. And hopefully that impact can lead to really meaningful relationships that can help guide your career, that can hopefully help you return if that's something you want to do after college, or if you just want to have a mentor or an advocate, that can be a great way to start developing that connection early and having that relationship for the rest of your career. You never know how long they can last or how much they can impact you.
Yeah, phenomenal points mentioned there, and I'd echo many of those, right? I love when I see a coffee chat pop up on my calendar. I'm like, some free time, some me time, some not work time, but really just connecting with another individual thoughts and adding perspective that they might be looking for. So 1,000%, and it's something that a lot of our interns tend to do here too, is setting up one-on-ones with the members of your team and getting to know them, showing up authentically to those conversations so that you can get to know this team and hopefully create um the start of a relationship there. I've seen so many people, not so many, but like two interns that I'm thinking of. I won't name names off the top of my head, but um the interns that ask the questions and come to me authentically, you're not a bother. You're actually creating an impression to me is like, okay, yeah, he needs help, and oh, maybe there's something that I missed in my role that I can better support them through. And so there's a ton of questions coming in, but then we have our one-on-one later, and then we have this great conversation. It's, man, I felt like I've talked to you so much already. And now I feel like I have a great, relationship with you, and I can answer your questions more authentically. And we've established a base in which we communicate. And yeah, and then I've seen others who have had these strong impressions with their teams and have left strong impressions with them from the relationships that they had where, oh man, they're reaching back out to me because this intern works on a separate team. And they're like, yo, we're trying to get it hooked up with a job. Like, what can we do? What are the opportunities? So these impressions are huge. And those one-on-ones, I love me a coffee chat, and many of your peers or other people working in your organization love a good coffee chat to take them away from, some of the things they might got going on in the day to debrief and really take a moment to, right, and just reflect on what's current, what's relevant, and what somebody else might be going through as well. So, absolutely.
I would just add too that I mean I think for many of you working in a professional environment is probably new, and networking can be an intimidating thing. Not everybody is naturally someone who likes to ask a lot of questions and isn't intimidated by being in a room full of managers and supervisor directors and things like that. So just know that I think these are skills that you're going to take with you, and you're going to be honing them for the rest of your career. And getting to know people and asking questions and networking is something that the folks that where you're working this summer understand that this is something that's new to you, and they're going to be there to help you and guide you, but also be supportive of you. So don't let it intimidate you at all. And some companies are larger and they'll actually put together networking events for their interns. Others, if you have a small company, it's probably somewhere, a month into your internship, you may know everybody and you'll get to know them and you'll be able to stay in contact with them. And you never know when a connection will transpire into a job opportunity. I know at Martin's Point, we often have it several years before somebody comes back and works for us. but it's usually through a connection they establish in their internship. So I would say don't be intimidated. Be authentic. Like Isaiah said, I think that's extremely important. People know when people are being authentic and being genuine. So just be who you are. But it's something, these are skills you're starting to develop and hone, and you shouldn't feel that you're going to be an expert networker the minute you start an internship program.
And I'll even add to that, you can build these into your day-to-day meetings or conversations that you're already having. If you have a meeting, even just taking the first couple minutes or 5 minutes to check in on the person you're talking with and asking how they're doing, how their day's been, how their weekend's been, taking that time to just make the personal connection before jumping into the work can make a world of difference, not only in developing a relationship, but in productivity when working with that person. So just really being intentional and being authentic and caring for the person as a person, not just for the work they're doing, is super important as well.
These are fantastic points. Thank you all. And I know many of you might be in internship programs where reaching out and setting up one-on-ones might have been part of your first couple weeks on the internship. Some employers will structure their programs like that to intentionally build in those opportunities. If you haven't had a chance to do that yet, whether it's built into your program or not, definitely encourage you to reach out to folks to schedule those one-on-one conversations throughout the summer. People love to talk about themselves and to meet and learn new people. So yeah, especially if there's coffee involved or a snack, it's never a bother and always a great use of time. We know that many interns are still exploring different career paths, and they're utilizing this summer internship as a way to continue learning about career opportunities and about what they like and don't like about the world of work. What is some advice that you all would give to interns who want to learn about other departments or roles that might be a little bit further removed from what their summer internship is focused on, while ensuring that, they're focused on their primary internship responsibilities as well?
Happy to jump in there. So first I'd say don't feel like asking to shadow or learn about another departments is anything other than you're trying to get the most out of your internship. I think maybe if you're feeling like if I say this, my mentor or my supervisor might think that I'm not interested in the work that I'm doing. But in reality, a lot of larger businesses have shadowing set up so that, full-time employees can shadow other departments. They want to make sure that people are where they want to be within the company. That helps with their retention. It helps, make the workplace a place people want to be. So I would say first and foremost, don't feel bad about asking to shadow a different department. Sometimes you have an opportunity to work across different departments in your internship. Sometimes you don't. So it may be that you're meeting somebody telling you about what they do within the company you're working for, and it may be of interest. And I think talking to your mentor, your supervisor, whoever that may be, about just wanting to learn more is something that they should be supportive of. And again, your internship may offer this, but if it doesn't, it's just a matter of having a conversation with your mentor, your supervisor. And I would imagine that they would be wholeheartedly supportive of it, just because, again, it's showing that you're trying to get the most out of your experience. And like Hannah said, an internship is not just finding out what you love, but it's finding out what you don't like too, because your career ultimately, you want to be doing something that you want to do and not be forced into something that you don't want to do. So that would be my first advice, would be to not feel bad about that. And if anything, again, it's helping you make the most out of your experience.
And to echo what Russ was saying, I think the biggest thing to take away with this question is it's absolutely okay to still be exploring and to be looking at all the different opportunities. You're not expected to know what you want to do. I still don't know what I want to do, and your whole career is going to be about learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So as long as you're being upfront with your supervisor or your mentor, or whoever it is, saying, I really want to learn, you should hopefully have the support to do that. Job shadows, like Russ said, are an amazing way to do that, or even just sitting in on a meeting that may bring together different business areas is another great way to do that. And if you're able to, something I did during my internship that really helped me out was work on a project that took place both in my current role, but also worked with other business areas that I was interested in. So I was able to a little bit be involved with all different parts of the company without having to totally pivot what my internship actually was, because that's definitely less realistic. So just being willing to put yourself out there, jump on opportunities that may come up in other places, but also being very clear that you want to do well in your current role and are interested in learning, I think will set you up for a lot of success. But you're here to learn, so keep that in mind and prioritize your exploration, because that's really the best thing that can come out of an internship.
1000%. One thing that I thought was really cool that I seen this year, shout out to the interns at Hannaford this year, great people. Um, and they're brilliant, right? And they start talking amongst each other. They're a close group right now, and they start talking amongst each other. They're in different departments. Like, oh snap, I work in marketing. I can connect you with somebody on my team if you want to try to learn more for your project, right? And this is a great way in which interns being in different departments can help each other in your cohort, right? Expand and learn about the different departments across the network that you're currently residing in. So yeah, again, shout out to my interns. They took that upon themselves, but this was a really proactive way to actually, oh man, this is a great way for us to network. We already have a little cohort here. How can I help you connect with, oh, the center store team or and XYZ, the finance department and so on. So it was cool. Not only encourages you to get to know your peers more and have an opportunity to connect there, but how can you guys then support each other as your careers go on? You're continuously be supporting those within your cohort or your organization. So great stuff. That's not me, but I learned that from a group of great interns.
I would add to what Isaiah is saying. That's another skill that you're going to take with you. Working across departments, understanding what other folks do, and to be able to tap into the folks that you need in order to accomplish something or to finish a project or whatever it may be. It shows your employer too that you are able to work independently and as well as part of a group, but you can think like that and think about who can I tap into to get something done. So those are skills you're going to take with you as well.
Wonderful. And to echo what everyone's been talking about, exploring and having at least a baseline understanding of different departments or what other people do within an organization also makes you a well-rounded employee. And having that knowledge, even if you don't necessarily apply it directly to what you do day to day, it often provides you with that foundational context about what else is going on around you so that parts of what you do might make more sense within the context of the whole organization or with the industry as well. So everybody's always looking for a well-rounded and curious employee.
Yeah, that just makes you look super savvy. Like, yo, who is this? Who is this kid? He's just going in, right? Kid, adult, you know what I mean? But like, wow, they're super present and they know what's up, which is a super great look on any intern or any young professional.
I know some of you have started to speak about this, but wondering if there's any way that you want to elaborate on how interns can actually go about communicating that they have interests with their supervisor or mentor and proactively connecting with other teams in a professional way. I know scheduling, job shadows and one-on-ones were coming up, but what are some other practical next steps and tips that interns can take to make that step?
Isaiah already kind of started talking about it, but talking to your other like your other interns or your other intern classmates is going to be very beneficial. And that can be pretty casual of just like, hey, what are you working on? That's different from what I'm working on. Getting into a more high level, like talking to your supervisor about it. You have to ask to get exposure to something that you might not be working on. I tell my interns a lot that if there's something that you're not working on that you think is interesting, just go ask your manager, like, hey, can I see what this person's working on in this other department? I just want to see what it's like. The worst they'll say is no. And I've never had somebody say no. It's already been said a lot during this panel that you want to learn a lot during your internship and get a lot out of it. But I think something that a lot of people kind of overlook is that you learn what you don't want to do also. And if you're doing something that you don't want to do and you find a group that is working on something that looks more interesting, really put yourself out there and just ask the question of, can I get exposure to this? It can be as big as a job shadow for a couple hours or just talking to somebody who's currently in that role about what project they're currently working on or what their day-to-day looks like.
I would also say, just echoing what Mackenzie's saying, but also, if you're working for a company this summer that doesn't have a setup for this type of thing, maybe they should. So you bring it to your mentor, supervisor's attention, and other interns within that are also part of your cohort. Um, Maybe it'll spur them to set something up like this because it is something that a lot of internship programs have started to do if they haven't been doing it for a while, which is, providing an opportunity for their interns to learn about other departments within the company. So definitely doesn't hurt to ask, but also it'd be very unlikely that somebody's going to tell you no. So
Wonderful. Pivoting the conversation a little bit and talking a little bit more about if an intern has a really successful internship program and they want to learn more about what a transition into a full-time role or other opportunity after the current internship runs out, um, how can they communicate those interests as well and position themselves as a strong future candidate for a similar or different position within a company or organization? What actions or behaviors help interns stand out as potential future long-term hires?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I'll tell a story because I love storytelling. Recently we had this conversation between our current interns and interns who are now full time or full timers who were once interns with us, I should say. And we started talking around this particular topic, and one of the full timers, and it was a great answer. He works for one of our sister companies, but is in the same building. He said, "Hey, straight up." Tell them, right? If you tell a professional right away or a full-time or a supervisor, hey, I want to be here, they're going to remember that. And nine times out of 10, especially if you're advocating for yourself in a professional manner, they're going to go maybe even out of their way to, see if there's an opportunity for you. Now, I won't speak for everyone. We can't create opportunities out of the blue, but when the opportunity presents itself, we can be a great advocate. Any professional can be a great advocate for you, right? And especially if you have a hunger and desire to be a part of this team, no organization wants somebody who kind of wants to be a part of the team. Every organization wants somebody who wants to be a part of the team. So in order for you to, get that recognition or be a part, you find out you love this internship and you want to work there. Hey, Isaiah, oh, hey, Russell, Mackenzie, I want to work here. How can I make this happen? Right? What are steps that I can take? Who can I meet with? And what opportunities from like job postings might there be? Right? Start asking the questions, but be super candid. I want to be here, right? And don't be afraid to say that, especially if you have the passion to want to be there, because then that's going to start lining up the next steps into that communication or that next steps to actually visualize you as oh, you are somebody that wants to be here. That's the first thing. You gotta want it, right? That should show up not only in the way you communicate it, but equally as important, if not more important, the way you show up in your actions, in your way that you go about your business, your work, and so on. But I loved what this particular intern said in this story or this full-timer said, because it's so true. Many interns do not take the time to just say it. They might, oh, well, I'm working hard. Maybe they would assume, or they want, you know what I mean? Nah, just be straight up, let us know, tell them. And from there should open up different avenues or different forms of communication to make it happen.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think saying it and also being able to articulate why you want to stay is so important. So if you're taking the leap and saying that you want to return, which is definitely scary, so know that that is super nerve-wracking, but it'll be worth it. But also being able to explain why you want to be there, not just because it's another job or another company, but why this company, why these people, why this organization, that will add so much strength behind what is already a very strong candidate profile that you have as an intern. So being able to do that and also being able to make your value visible, I think is a really important thing. So something I did when I was an intern that I still do now as a full-time employee is anytime I complete something, no matter how small or large, I write it down and I have this long running notes list of all the things I've done. And that helps you look back and say, wow, look at all these things I accomplished. Look at all this value I can add to your team, to your organization, if I already was able to do this much this summer. And it also will make it a lot easier for you to really work on your resume when the time comes, because that's also a super important part of applying to these full-time roles. But yeah, really document your achievements, be proud of them, be able to communicate them, but also being able to communicate why where you want to go is where you want to go. That will create such a strong case for you, even though, like I said, you already have a strong case. You're an intern, so just be able to speak about it and you'll do great. And also what we've been talking about almost this whole time is your network. And I know Isaiah touched on this as well, but yeah, building the network that can really advocate for you, that will keep an eye out when opportunities pop up, that will share that with you, that will share you to that team, is going to be so important. You really never know when that could come in handy. And those people will be able to help you with the smaller things as well, like writing the cover letter or working on your resume. So never underestimate your network, but also just being able to say, I want to be here and here's why, will go a very long ways in itself.
Something else that I would add to this is that I think oftentimes, just because internships kind of can come across of like, well, this is just an internship, it's just a transactional, I'm going to learn and then I'm going to leave mindset. I tell people to go into their internship and go into their team as if they're not going to leave in 12 weeks and really develop more personal relationships with people. Obviously, do your work and stand out technically, but develop more personal relationships where your presence is a little bit missed once you leave.
And one more thing I would add, a way to make yourself very missable is by like adding so much to your team that they'll continue to look at the work you're doing weeks, months, even hopefully years down the line after you've moved into a different role or have gone back to school or whatever it is. So if another thing to be able to articulate, and again, I think as I say this, a huge part about this is being able to speak to the things you've done, but being able to share the impact the work you've done has had, not just what work you've done, but how it's having these long-term impacts will be super important to say, like, I've left my mark and here's how it can help you going forward.
I love all of the great actionable advice. Thank you all. Those are some very specific, tangible examples of things that you all can be doing throughout the summer and beyond. All of those are things that you can be doing in any professional role. Can each of you share an example of an intern that you've worked with that really stood out to you and share a little bit more about what that individual did that made them memorable and what lessons can current interns learn from the examples that you'll be sharing?
I would say a particular intern. And I mentioned this in other examples too. And this, I'll start it off by saying this. Authenticity is super important when going into your internship so that people can get a gist of who you are, what you offer, and your intent, right, behind everything that you do. Uh, Now, sometimes authenticity can in a professional setting, I'm trying to say it the right way, right? So you want to approach every scenario with professionalism, right? Right? First engaging said person, because me, if you're approaching me, I might not be the most outgoing person in the world, right? Not saying we're not all outgoing. Everybody's got a little outgoing person in us all, but you want to approach it with that professionalism. And then as time goes on, become more, allow for your authenticity to shine through, right? You don't want to approach 100,000% authentic, right? It's like, whoa, I just met you, right? Let's break this ice, right? But you're gonna meet wonderful people and they're gonna be more than welcome to wanting to getting to know you, right? But I feel like a good piece of advice that was given me was show up professionally, knowing the context, understanding the assignment so that you can then crush the assignment and show up as your authentic self and letting that blossom through so people can get to know you in a great way. I say that longer spiel to say there was a particular intern that showed up authentically. And I'm referencing their presentation. And this was an intern from last year, a marketing intern, right? It was a phenomenal final presentation, right? And she's presenting it in front of VPs. And I'm using this as an example, but she's done this same habit or this same topic, right, throughout her entire internship. It was something that she was very passionate about that you would think really in a final presentation, right? But she was passionate about it, right? And she included this. It was her theme overall in her presentation, and it was an authentic piece of who she was, but she crushed the assignment at hand. What was her project? She had her assignment and she crushed that while also advocating and showing us who she was, right? And this left an impression on many of our um VPs, people from her department, and so on. Whereas it's like, man, I know Chloe as a person, and that person's wonderful. But also, the work that they put in was awesome, and like I would love to have this person a part of the team. So this was a particular example when professionalism and authenticity came and collided with one another, and it was a beautiful, beautiful scenario that created great opportunity for this individual. So I would say, yeah, that professionalism, right? Entering or walking into every scenario with that leading. Wow, it's just like a train, right? And the other carts in that train, your authenticity is following through it. So that is a part of it all, right? Professionalism, authenticity, and combination can create a great opportunity, a great scenario for any intern.
I would say I have a hard time picking one particular intern. It's kind of like picking your favorite child. I would say it's more the what it is that they bring to the table as an intern that stands out and makes a lot of us, especially I'm in the marketing department here at Martin's Point, kind of remember certain interns. And I think so much of it is how engaged they are. I mean, I know this is something you hear from the first day of orientation and talking about make sure you ask questions, make sure that you're trying, to get to know people and things like that. But when you actually see people put it into practice, it's pretty impressive and it does stay with you. I mean, think of an intern that we had last summer that probably lived an hour and a half away from Portland, showed up for every single event, whether it was optional or not, talked to the other interns, asked questions, asked what projects they were working on, did a great job within their department. And they were tapped in like, as soon as an entry level opportunity came up after they left their internship program, they applied for it and got it. And it was not so much just, maybe they did a great job in their department, but also they just showed that they were a fit for the culture. They were, somebody that could work across different departments and they were just a very engaged person. And I think that just makes such a huge difference. And it's the same thing that makes an employee stand out. A full-time employee at a company, also stands out when they're engaged and they, show up for things and that they work across departments. So I would just say that, it's not so much, that there's an individual, I mean, there's one or two every year that really stand out, but it's more about, what do they bring to the table? And it's a lot of it's just engagement. How engaged are they? So,
I would also completely agree with what both Isaiah and Russ have said. Again, I don't have a specific person in mind, but I also feel a little bit biased since I was an intern. I don't want to call out just one person, but I remember both in my internship and since some things that I've seen interns do that has really made a difference in their internship experience and going into their career has been the ability to take initiative, and that can be in a variety of different forms. But one thing I saw a peer of mine do back when I was an intern was create a project for themselves. So they saw that there was this big gap in one of our platforms and processes. And they were like, that is something we just need to tackle, and asked if that was something that they could look at and support. And that ended up being the bulk of the work that they did. And by identifying it on their own, they were really passionate about it. They showed up beyond what their expectation was, and they really left a memorable impact on the organization they worked in because they had kind of taken the lead there and demonstrated their value in that way. So just taking the initiative and identifying your own opportunities is a great way to do that. And also taking the initiative to receive feedback is another one. So asking for feedback, asking where you could be doing more, where you're doing well, where you can look for other opportunities, and continuing to ask those questions is going to be huge in helping you figure out where you have the most room for growth, and also to identify your own strengths and see where you're really showing up. That can help kind of really create a full picture internship for you.
I will try to kind of pick an example that has a piece of what everybody talked about. A couple years ago, we had an intern who, I guess, background on Garmin, if you're not familiar, we create avionic and consumer electronics. So, aviation is a really big market for us. We had an intern who worked on flight kiosks because these flight displays are really expensive. If people want to try them out, we have to have a kiosk for them to try it out on. So Kylie worked on the software for that kiosk. She went back to school. And then after graduation, she started back with us full time on the same team. And she made herself the subject matter expert on the software for these kiosks. So her first week back, we had a big air show called Oshkosh that everybody goes to. It's a pretty big deal in the aviation world. And our kiosk went down. It broke. We didn't know what to do. So we called Kylie. It was her second week at work, and she flew out to Oshkosh and she fixed the kiosk. She stayed for a couple days, made sure it was running and it was good, and then she came back. And that was just on her second week of being a full-time associate. She is incredible. She still works here. She's brilliant, but she's very hungry and wanting to do more. She picked up this project with the kiosk, I think, as a secondary project and really killed it. But she also created, I guess, a lot of trust from her teammates. Even as an intern, these full time associates trusted her. The director of aviation trusted her to come back out her second week of being full time to fix this problem that we had, and she did a great job. So she was awesome, and she really connected with her team and proved herself that she was trusted to be able to do whatever task they put in front of her.
Wonderful. I love all of those examples, and hopefully you can see yourselves reflected in parts of the qualities of the successful interns that the panelists have shared. And just a quick plug, a couple of topics that have come up in this conversation that we'll elaborate on in future webinars and events. The theme of authenticity is going to be very relevant for our polished and powerful personal branding and professional communications webinar 2 weeks from today, led by David Pease at Bangor Savings Bank. So if you want to learn how to develop your authentic self, that bridges that gap of building that professional persona that still has pieces of who you are as a person, definitely tune in for that one 2 weeks from today. And then I believe it's our last webinar of the summer, and later in July, will be focused on unlocking your future internship to career. So a couple of questions back talking about if you're interested in making that transition from your internship into a full-time role, we'll have panelists that have successfully navigated that transition and made that leap. And we'll continue to share more professional advice on that topic as well. I'm going to ask one last rapid fire question of the panelists. I have seen that some attendees have started to put questions in the Q&A. So if you have questions, be thinking about that as we're wrapping up with the conversation here. The Q&A should be at the bottom of your screen. You might have to click on the three dots, the more at the bottom. If you're having a hard time finding the Q&A, you can pop your question into the chat and we'll take a look at it that way as well. But to wrap up with our last sort of rapid fire question, what is one piece of advice that you wish every intern knew on their first day headed into the summer?
That's
I'll
good.
go, Isaiah.
Yeah.
We both unmute at the same time. Going back to what I said earlier, ask the question. Don't wait until it's too late. Just ask the question.
Yeah, facts. That as well as somebody asked a good question this summer. What's the culture around reaching out to somebody that you don't usually contact, right? What's the call? Should I email them first before throwing a meeting on their invite? What's the vibe? What's the culture around communicating?
Hopefully, you already know this one, but I think it can be hard to embody. So, just remembering that you deserve to be exactly where you are, like you deserve to be in the internship, you deserve to have a seat at the table, is so important. So, just remember that, use your voice, and take advantage of the time you have because you really have earned this. So, just be willing to own that and embrace it.
Oh, Meg, that was mine too. No, that's such a good point, though. I mean, you deserve it. You've earned it. You probably were in a large group of folks applying for your internship, and you were selected, so you should be proud of that. Um, you should 100% feel like you were an employee at the company or organization you're interning with, and you should definitely feel the confidence that comes with that. And also, I think something that I wish all of our interns really could take to heart from day one is that everyone that they're going to also interact with at Martin's Point is happy to have them there and excited to have some folks coming in with new ideas and new abilities and an understanding that's different than folks that have been there for years. And you can offer so much. And I think that that's something that should make you all feel comfortable is that more than likely the folks you're interacting with wherever you are really happy to have you there as well, and that you're going to be adding something to and adding value to the department you're in and the company you're working for, and people appreciate that, and the folks you're going to be interactive, they're going to appreciate that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And without further ado, I'm going to turn our attention to some of the great questions that have been coming in to the Q&A. We have our first question. How do I make the most out of networking events? Sometimes I feel like it's hard to know what to say or how to relate to others because I'm new at this. Anyone feel free to jump in.
That's a great question. And what I would say is it's not easy. And the person that you're planning on going to network with is probably feeling the same way. Um, Always lead with humor, right? Hey, it's a little awkward. Hey, my name's you know what I mean? It's like you gotta, it's hard, but it's a great question. And sometimes just starting somewhere is a great place to start. And I know that sounds super cliche to say, but say, hey, my name's Isaiah. Super awkward. I don't really do this much, but who are you? Where are you from? Love to get to know you, right? And it can be tough. Breaking that ice is not easy, but it's that first step that's definitely worth it. And the person you're talking to probably feeling the same way.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that because I personally, as a recruiter, I shouldn't feel this way, but I don't personally love networking events. The first step is to just go. If you force yourself to go, you will talk to somebody, somebody will talk to you. And it can be as casual as like, how was your day to what's your job, and expanding that out. The more you do it, the more comfortable you will get. But the first step is just being present. And I think that is a perfect start, especially if this is just something that you're starting off with. It's going to be awkward, it's going to be uncomfortable. But like Isaiah was saying, there are other people who are going to be there who think the same thing. So you won't be alone.
I would also say you've probably done networking without realizing it. Somebody's asked you where you go to school, what your major is, what classes you're taking, what you liked, what you like, what you don't like, whatever that might be. Networking professionally isn't too much different than that, and it's easy to prepare for. Being able to talk about project work you're doing right now, and the department you're in, is an easy icebreaker, and asking other folks kind of what area they're in. If they're leaders and you're having an opportunity to network with leadership, that can be intimidating, but more than likely they're going to ask you about the work you're doing and whether you're enjoying it and whatnot. So just being prepared a little bit. I mean, some of it's small talk, but other times it gives you an opportunity to lead and talk about what you're doing. And again, I think Hannah said it. People like to talk about themselves. So opening up and just asking questions, what area they're in, it may come back to them asking you where you go to school, and they have a connection to the school you go to, and then you never know. And also knowing when you need to go and talk to somebody else. So like any other social function, if you get stuck talking to somebody for too long, kind of ruins a networking opportunity. So just know when you can say, hey, I'm going to go and do whatever, and kind of people understand that as well. Try to get the most out of it, but you can prepare in some ways. Think about some questions to ask, but also just be able to answer the questions that you're more than likely going to get.
And just kind of piggybacking off of that, I definitely get nervous at networking events. So if that's you, you're definitely not alone. Everyone else is, or majority of people are probably feeling the same level of nerves you may be. But with that, I always like to prepare 3 talking points about myself and 3 questions I can ask anyone before I go to a networking event. I put them in a notes app on my phone, and if I'm nervous or can't remember, I'll run to the bathroom, check my notes app, and come back out. Um, but really just having talking points, if you're writing them down, you probably will already have them in the back of your mind at that point. But that can be a good way to say, I know I can talk about these things. And if I get through these, that's probably the end of my conversation with this person, and I can go meet someone else now. Just even going back to the first question, like Isaiah said, being prepared, making the time, and feeling just a little bit more comfortable through that will help ease the nerves quite a bit. So that would be my advice.
Thank you all. We have a question about how to go about asking for more structure and organization within an internship. How would somebody go about doing that if they feel that maybe that's been lacking so far?
I I guess it would depend on your program, but I think it would be worthwhile maybe to at some point either sit down with your manager or sit down with your recruiter, whoever hired you, to provide feedback in a professional manner, of course, about the internship program. We send out surveys about the program and events and the structure of things. So we kind of already ask for that information. But if you have regular one on ones with your manager, um, I would suggest maybe bringing something up there if that's kind of part of the issue where you don't have a lot of structure around your project or around your manager. I think it's appropriate to also just connect with your manager via email or something like, hey, do you mind if we set up like a bi-weekly sync just to check in on how things are going? Um, so so I can give you project updates or you can give me more tasks. If it's further than that about like I guess structure or program structure of like different events and things like that. That would be something I would maybe take to your HR representative and just maybe ask if there's anything else you could get involved with that maybe is offered to full-time associates and try to integrate into that instead of just doing having something that's solely for interns. I know that some programs are smaller and they don't have a lot of resources around intern programs, but trying to connect within that more the bigger full-time population of associates would be beneficial as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one. There might be a couple of things in play there, depending on the size of the program, or a new mentor, whoever it is, maybe overseeing the area you're in. So I would say it's not your job to provide that structure. It's more on somebody else's side. That being said, there are things you can do. I mean, the Maine Career Catalyst has a ton of great networking events you can tap into. There are things you can do outside of your particular program, especially if it's a smaller program. But I think Mackenzie kind of nailed it with just, you need to talk to either your supervisor, your mentor, or go to HR if you're feeling like it's lacking, especially you've got a lot of weeks ahead of you. So it's probably worth talking to somebody sooner than later.
And in having that conversation, if you're nervous about bringing it up with your supervisor or someone else, I would phrase it in a way that puts it on you. So saying, I really benefit from having structure, from having an outline. Is there any way you could help me ensure that that's something I have day to day? And phrasing it in a way where it's about you and about your learning and development will hopefully be a way to ensure you get the support you need because ultimately people want to help you. And people will often be more likely to provide that if you ask it in a way that is for your own personal need versus in a critical way. Still provide feedback, but just be professional about how you phrase it.
Thanks, Megan. While we're still on you, we have another question that I know you talked about quite a bit, as well as some of the others on the panel. But somebody asked, do you have any tips on how to go about starting your own personal project? What are the limitations and freedoms? I know some of you have talked about interns working on particular projects throughout the summer.
I'm happy to kick that off. I think the big thing would be really just look in the work you're already doing, look for areas where there's opportunity, where there may not be something that you think could be helpful, or where things may not be super efficient. And if you can identify something like that, bringing it to your supervisor or whoever you kind of look to for your day-to-day responsibilities and saying, this is something that I'm really excited about and would love to dive into more, would be my recommended first step. Having the space to explore whatever the topic is really important. And that comes in any project. Like the discovery phase is incredibly important in understanding where there may be a need for more work, more efficiencies, whatever that is. So bringing that to the person that you work with closest in planning your day to day and saying, this is something that really energizes me, and then also being able to explain why it would help them as well, is hopefully going to be enough to get you some buy-in. But if you can explain the personal value it will bring your development and also say why it would help them or the greater team or the greater organization out, are going to be the big key things you need in getting started. And then hopefully once you get started, you can kind of cater the structure to whatever you like. If you're looking for something with more structure, you can ask a supervisor to help provide that for you or build it with you. But if you want to have freedom in exploring the project, you can say, this is something I'm really excited about and I think I know where to start. I'll reach out if I have any questions. And allowing yourself to take the lead is another great way to just explore your own interests and develop some of those leadership and project management skills.
Thank you. There was a question, how do you recommend connecting with individuals within the same organization in a different field? Is it as easy as just sending an email and going from there, or is there anything else that they should be thinking about or doing?
Yeah, this is a good question here. Um, And that's why I think it's always good to know the appropriate cadence in which you go about doing things. Like you say in the question, is it as easy as just sending out an email, right? Understand that's why you ask the question, hey, what's the typical here, right? Is this a good cadence for me to do? Or is this a good way I could go about it? Sometimes it is as easy as, yeah, let me just email them, right? But making sure prior to emailing, you're checking certain cadences or check boxes of what's this person's role? Can I learn more about what they oversee so that I know I'm bringing them a question that is relevant to them rather than a question that's like, that's not even in my ballpark. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it avoids that kind of friction that might be a cause. So really understanding the cadence, right? What's normal in this organization? Each organization is going to be a little bit different about how they go about communicating or across departments. Understanding that form. You being an intern is great. You already checked off a box in the sense that you are new and learning in this world where you're not expected to know everything. So you already have that like check box off, which is great. And then also just understanding, hey, who is it that I'm communicating to, right? And how relevant are they to the topic that I'm looking to request, the question that I'm looking to ask? Putting those two together really makes for a good opportunity for, say, if they are within that field or within that relevant topic, they're gonna be like, oh man, yeah, I can't wait to help you because I have all the answers.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Well, believe it or not, we're a minute to one, and I want to take a moment to thank all of our fantastic panelists for such a great conversation. Your sage wisdom and very actionable suggestions and next steps, I think, will really help the summer's interns get off on the right foot. We had a lot of really fantastic questions, and we didn't have a chance to get to all of them. So if we didn't get to answer your question, please feel free to email myself or Henry after the panel conversation. And if it's a question for a particular individual on this panel, we'd be happy to connect you with that person to continue the conversation. Again, thank you all for being here. We hope we'll see many of you next week for our Winding Career Paths webinar, and have a great rest of your day.